And then I'll just read this, that Honorable Marilyn Liebers is in attendance via teleconference from 2228 Rega Court, Morgan Hill, California, 95037. The teleconference location is open to the public, and any member of the public may address the board of directors members from the teleconference location. And could we get roll call, please?
Ann Bybee, present. Hung Wei. Stanley Meadows. Here. Stanley Mock.
Present.
Rob Rennie. Carmen Montano. Javid Elahi.
Present.
Mark Turner. Marilyn Liebers.
Here.
Margaret Abekoga.
Here.
Lydia Ku. Sergio Jimenez. Kathy Watanabe.
Here.
Tina Walia.
Here.
Larry Klein. With we have 9 members, we have quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We'll go to oral communications from the public on non-agendized items. Any members of the public wishing to speak in the audience? If not, is there anyone online?
No.
All right, we'll close that item and go to our agenda. First item is our consent agenda. Are there any directors who'd like to pull or comment on item A or B? Not any members of the public wishing to speak on our consent calendar? No one online? I will close public comment and entertain a motion in a second for the consent agenda.
Second by Klein.
Thank you. Yeah, motion by.
Okay, I'm gonna call the votes
Oh,
in
yes,
order
please.
of city. Campbell. Aye. Cupertino.
Aye. She comes.
Yes, we have more people.
Just in time to say aye.
Perfect. Gilroy, oh, sorry. Los Altos.
Aye.
Los Altos Hills.
Abstain.
Los Gatos. Milpitas. Monte Sereno.
Aye.
Morgan Hill.
Abstain.
Mountain View.
Aye.
Palo Alto.
Yes.
San Jose.
Yes.
Santa Clara.
Yes.
Saratoga.
Yes.
Sunnyvale.
Aye.
With 11. 11 ayes. Yes, motion carries.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We go to item 2, which is my update. Item A, so we have to present our slate of officers for next year. We formed a nominating committee that was composed of Larry Klein, Malia, and myself. And for next year, the slate of officers that it will be proposed and we will vote on at our next meeting in November. Our president will be Nisa Feiger, first vice president Larry Klein, second vice president Tina Walia, secretary treasurer Hung Wei, and I will remain on as past president. So this will be until, if the JPA is formed, then we will have to do a new slate of officers, and if we call based on the number of cities that join, that will determine the number of officers that we will have. So this will be, could be short-lived. But to start off the new year, we wanted to present our officers. So we also do take nominations. If anyone else is interested in running for any of these seats, please let either Tina, Larry, or myself know, and we will also take nominations from the floor next month for their opportunities if anyone else is interested in serving. Any questions on that? Not, move on to the second item. Our holiday party is in December. It's the 14th, I believe. It's the second Thursday. And we're still working on a venue, but in the past, we have presented awards for Champion of the Year. It's been a legislator. Last year, I believe it was Jen Loving. And so it could be a community leader. I was trying to brainstorm some folks, and I actually, for the community leader award, I would like to present it to Girish Balachandran, the CEO of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. He's actually going to be retiring this year. And as you all know, SVCE came out of this organization. So we thought that would be a good tie-in and a good way to honor Girish as he retires. So but I am looking for suggestions for legislator of the year. So if anyone has any suggestions, happy to take them now, or if you can let me know, email me later, that would be great. Any questions or comments on that item? And are there any members of the public wishing to speak on either item A or B? And we'll close that item then. Thank you. And we'll go to item 3. We have a number of guest speakers this evening. We will start with the Community Planning Collaborative, and we've seen Mr. Dave Driscoll online often. He's here in the flesh today. So welcome, and I know your partners are online, so just take it away.
Okay,
When you're ready.
I'm going to share screen, but I think I'm good. Okay. Great. This. Full screen. There we go. If I'm speaking, yeah, I turned off my audio. Can they hear me?
Yeah.
Mine?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Great to be here in person. It's a pleasure. Just to make clear, so I'm from Community Planning Collaborative, which is a small consulting practice that does collaborative planning. And I'm here to talk to you about the Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative, which is a separate entity of all your jurisdictions. And we meet regularly with your planning staff and housing staff to take on challenges together. Tonight, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been up to broadly at the Planning Collaborative, talk about sort of where we've come from, what we've been focusing on, a couple of really specific things that of sort of near-term priorities, and then looking ahead to next year in terms of additional funding that is expected to come from the state through ABAG to continue supporting this, with the potential expectation that there'll be a local match. So I just wanted to start daylighting that and talking a little bit about what that might look like, just so no one gets surprised. So we've been going with the Planning Collaborative since 2019. There was a lot of conversations that happened over months, maybe years. Prior to that, there's been an effort in San Mateo County, 21 elements, all the 21 jurisdictions there, that's been going on for about 12 years. And as things happen, you know, people who used to be in San Mateo County took jobs in Santa Clara County and said, hey, where's the 21 Elements group? And so there were some conversations about, okay, how could we make something happen here? So actually, even before ABAG started funding things, all the cities here in the county put in funds to start making something happen. So it started out with, I think it was like $50,000 in every jurisdiction. It was tiered by size of city, put in some funding to help get things started. And just as we were getting started, the state gave out the Regional Early Action Planning, REAP funds that went to ABAG, and the ABAG used a significant chunk of those to support collaborative planning get-togethers in all the counties around the Bay Area. So we received funds from ABAG to really sort of expand the work. With a real strong focus, the state funds were really specifically about supporting jurisdictions in meeting the needs of updating housing elements. But you know, just broadly, it's an opportunity for your staff to get together, to do shared learning, to hear what each other is up to, challenges, how people are overcoming those challenges. Everyone still makes their own decisions. You guys, each council and board, the county level, the deciders, on what happens in your community, but it's just an opportunity to say, hey, like you did that. That sounds like it's something that could work in our community. How did you do it? And so we have regular meetings, and then we also do some focused work efforts on things that get identified by the group as being high priorities. I'll talk more about the 2024 funding.
Oh, it's not.
But it's not going, oh, it's happily going along on my screen. Okay. I've not had that challenge before. Well,
I would stop sharing and reshare.
Oh, let's go.
one more time. We don't go to the full screen mode. Here we go. Okay, so that's the slide I just described. Those are the words, my talking points. I'm going to go to the next one. There we go. So what we've been up to in 2023, like I said, a big focus has been on helping folks do their housing elements. There's some things that really are hard to do that just have to happen at the jurisdiction level. But in terms of the collaborative, we did a lot of work even 2022 and then going into 2023, doing countywide analysis on affirmatively furthering fair housing, was a whole set of state laws and need for analysis and recommendations related to programs. We provided what we called the program bot and the policy bot, which were sort of like these interactive Excel spreadsheets, essentially, that had a whole list of different kind of program and policy ideas that you could say, I'm facing this challenge, and it would give you sort of a short list of things that you could do in response to that challenge and links to sort of what other cities have done. We built that as a tool. And then we've done some really focused work on the request for your staff in terms of responding to HCD comments and just sort of knowing what some other jurisdictions, not just in Santa Clara County, but around the region or elsewhere in the state, how they've responded to comments that have come up. Again, we're just here to provide example resources, and your staffs are the ones that are then deciding what makes sense in your communities. In addition to that, we have our monthly meetings, get-togethers. We actually had one earlier today, a 90-minute meeting. Today we had a big turnout. We had about 60 people. We had 3 developers lined up. One was unfortunately ill, but we had 2 developers who joined us for an hour-long conversation, just sort of hearing from both the nonprofit and the for-profit developer how they see the world, and particularly as a number of jurisdictions are looking at rezoning. Okay, if we want to see this happen, like how do you as a developer look at it, and what could we do in terms of our policies, in terms of zoning or programs that would really sort of incentivize you to create the kinds of outcomes we're looking for. It was a really great conversation. We're going to be capturing, there's a recording of it for anyone who's interested, and then we're going to be capturing just sort of the high-level takeaways, because there were some really good perspectives to have. But we see the world from a regulatory perspective. They see it from a, like, okay, how do I make this work financially? And that world has changed a lot in the last year due to increasing interest rates and construction costs and things. So, and then there's things that we've been doing that are more sort of project-based. So last year we had a conversation like, what are the kind of priorities across all the jurisdictions? ADUs kind of rose to the top, sort of being at the forefront of a lot of housing element conversations. And we were here last month and shared the resources we've been building to help homeowners be developers, which is a tricky thing, and sort of, make good decisions, understand what they're getting into, understand what your local rules are, connect them with the resources professionals who can help them actually create an ADU. And Sam talked to you about those resources last month. That's just the website. If you haven't been to it, hopefully go to it, tell your friends and neighbors and colleagues, council members to utilize that. A lot of the jurisdictions have been connecting their websites to that to point homeowners as a resource. It goes beyond sort of what your local rules are, because it talks to them about, okay, how do you even think, like, why are you doing this? Like, what are your goals? Here's a calculator that you can actually calculate how much it would cost you to build and how much you might take in rent and what your break-even point would be, et cetera. So I'm not going to go into all those details, but it's there. And the sort of last piece of that we're working on is a ADU plans gallery, which will be dozens of different plans that homeowner can go on. We think of it as the Etsy of ADU plans. And you can go on and find the one that it might just inspire you to then connect with that architect and do something with them, or you can actually buy that plan and use that for your project. The other thing that's been going on, we've been having conversations around what we're calling the Grand Nexus Study, which is a very grand title for it. But a number of you are looking at updates to existing inclusionary zoning requirements or putting in place inclusionary zoning requirements and or commercial linkage fees. So all those things require studies that are done. A lot of the stuff, the work that needs to be done to put those in place would be replicated across the jurisdictions that are doing it. So it's an opportunity to work together and save some money and also just have some dialogue as you make decisions about how are you going to set your fee structures or what inclusionary zoning requirements. Just you're doing that. That's interesting. We're going to do a little differently. Again, it doesn't mean everyone makes the same decision, but at least we're able to save some money by doing it together. And we're able to have some good dialogue conversation. So this is an example where the collaborative is a place where we start the conversation, like who's doing this, who might be interested. The list up there on the bottom is the cities that so far have indicated they think they're probably interested. Some have said we're definitely in. Others, we're actually in the process of having them sign letters of intent, because then our next step is to send out an RFP, a collective RFP, request for proposals, to ask consultants to give in proposals. And at that point, we'll know what the budget is, and the cities that are participating will pay for that. It doesn't come out of the core budget. From that point forward, they pay for the work to get done. And again, they're going to get it for less cost than if they were to go out and each individually do it.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who in the city decides or that they're going to participate or not?
I would guess that plays out differently in each of your cities. It might be the planning director, it might be the city manager, it might be council. So I know that's the list of cities, and I'm not been the person leading this from our team. But
I don't know about this. I'll go home. and
okay.
ask.
Very good. Well, that's our daylight in here. But yeah, no, it's all in process. We're hoping to get the RFP out in the coming weeks once we have final decisions from each of the cities, like who's in. And then that study would be happening next year to support decision-making in each of those cities about how you might set fees.
What's the cost estimated budget?
I don't know. Sam, do you have a sense of what the cost is?
I can look and see if we have something. Let me check.
Or a range if you have that.
I think we're probably looking at like a 50 to 75. And that might be on the high end. Per jurisdiction. So, and that's going to vary a little bit by each jurisdiction, because some jurisdictions are say, I just need the feasibility study portion of this to do the IZ. Others are like, I want the whole kabang. Like there's some columns of each of these. Like, are you looking at residential inclusionary? Are you looking at residential linkage fees? Are you looking at commercial linkage fees? And some cities are like, I'm just looking at that. And some of them are looking at all of it, and that will affect the price for each of the cities. So when we put out the RFP, the responding consultant teams will have to say how they're breaking out the costs for each one of those components.
Essentially, menu of options depending on what each city has on their housing
Right.
element.
Right.
Is what they're-
Yeah. And so there's some cities who've been part of the conversation who are like, the time is just not right for us. We're going to wait because we've got a lot of other things going on, and this is not the right time for us to move forward.
Just quickly, a clarifying question. So the 50 to 75K.
Don't hold me to that.
No, I know. It was just a ballpark. Is that for all of the cities or is it per city? Per city, just
Again, it would totally
But
depend
it'll-
on
yeah.
what the city's looking
Understand.
to get done.
So across multi jurisdictions, are you going to go city by city, given that, our land values, for instance, are differ per city? So is
Yeah,
that
so
how you
the
will-
consultant will share with us their methodology for doing it. There's some things that you look at the regional housing market and,
Oh,
things that, construction costs are pretty common across all.
Okay,
So if I'm
that's
gonna do a pro
true.
forma I can do a pro forma for 7 cities, and if there's gonna be some parts of that I have to tweak by city, and other parts, it's pretty common. So that's where you get some of the cost savings.
Yeah. Great. Yes, Tina.
So the heading is multi, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I I'm sorry, go ahead, Tina, and then we'll get it, Javed.
To go back to what you were talking about, the monthly meetings, the one you had with the developers today, would that tie in with this or is that separate? And secondly, how can we get information about that? Because I am very interested in that.
Yeah, it's specifically on the developer conversation or, yeah. So we, on the City Association website, we have all of our meeting minutes and slide decks and other things. So we put everything up there. Yeah, I don't know, Sam, do you want to speak to sort of,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be up there tonight in terms of what happened today. It'll take a little bit to turn around, but.
Yeah, and I'm happy to pass along a link to watch our today's meeting. We did record it, so if anyone is interested in that, I will send it to Shali to pass around to everybody to watch and listen.
Yeah, but for folks who maybe don't want to spend an hour, we will probably 10 days have key takeaways summary, sort of 2-pager probably of things that we heard from the developers that we think were really important.
That would be great, but this was not included in that.
No, this is just an example. So the ADU program and this are examples of kind of projects that we've been doing. And then there's the monthly meetings are more like, hey, everyone, just wanted to let you know, like there's a new grant program from the state and you might want to think, here's the deadline and there's a webinar that you can plug into to learn about it. Or we've done a lot of things. There's been so many, as you know, so many new state housing laws coming out and everyone's like, okay, like how do I do this? So we work to do 20-minute, 30-minute deep dives on, okay, this is the new law, this is what you need to have in place. We work ourselves and then sometimes with other collaboratives around the region to create templates for a model ordinance or for talking to your community about this issue. We're gonna be working on some, we have it queued up, to work on some resources around how do you talk about density and design. So particularly as you go out and have rezoning conversations, you know, we throw out these numbers as planners all the time, 20 units to the acre, 40 units to the acre. Like, well, most people have no idea what the heck that even means, let alone what it looks like. And people, so giving some tangible examples, this is what this looks like in this context. This is how you can design, you know, a higher density building to make it look like it fits in a different context. So those are the kinds of things we can do together as projects. And then there's just the monthly meetings, what's going on.
I think you probably answered it. I mean, I was just looking at the commercial linkage. Now, my city doesn't have any commercial at all.
Yeah.
So probably not something we should be interested in.
Yeah, so yeah, so this is an example, like, so this study will be paid for by the cities that want the study done. Whereas like the ADU program was something that we heard pretty much everybody say we're interested, so we just built it as a shared resource that everybody could benefit from.
Yeah,
We did that from our core budget versus this is will be from a supplementary budget paid for by those cities.
I have two,
It's linked to from your website.
just two questions. Has this been done before in other regions, this grand nexus approach?
Yeah, we did. There was one, I was not involved with it. There was one in 21 Elements did one, I want to say 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
21 Elements is in.
21 Elements is the similar collaborative for San Mateo County.
Okay, and that was going to be my other question is how many other do they exist in every county or is it?
So they've been, so the person who runs the Regional Housing Technical Assistance Program for ABAG used to work at San Mateo County and was a huge fan of 21 Elements. And that's been going on for about 12 years. I was involved in the very early days where we were doing sort of housing element workbooks, sort of data workbooks for everybody. And it was sort of like, hey, you know, you could all save money if you just did it together because we were doing work with multiple jurisdictions in San Mateo County. So they started working together and this is their third time of doing a housing element round where they're collaborating and looking for ways to work together.
Like, for example, in Alameda County, do they have a?
So Alameda County has one now that was funded through the ABAG money. So Heather Peters went to ABAG. She said, everybody should have the 21 Elements. And so when the REAP money came, she said, we're going to put some of this money to supporting collaboratives around the Bay. So there's Napa Sonoma is one, they group together. There's a Marin group, Alameda, Contra Costa, us, San Mateo County. Obviously, San Francisco is a different thing because it's a city and county, but there's been what we call the Big Three cohort that's been meeting. So San Jose, Oakland, and San Francisco have been meeting once a month through their housing element process to share what they're doing.
War
challenges.
stories?
More stories, pretty much. And that's been, they've really appreciated it. It's just a, there's places where you all get together as elected officials, but there's not a lot of places where the staff get together. So there's a chance for the staff to connect with each other and share.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go to budget. So how much does all this cost? Obviously, we can do as much as we can with the budget we have. We started with a pretty small budget. We've been really fortunate to have the state funds and through ABAG for the last 2 years, the REAP 1.0 funding. That's been $615,000 over 2 years, which is was a nice big chunk of money. Break that down by the number of jurisdictions, like that's $19,000 a year for each jurisdiction, which we think you're getting a pretty big bang for the buck. If we were to say, hey, everyone just pay $19,000 a year, like you're going to get this kind of ADU resource, you're going to meet once a month, you're going to get information on new laws, you're going to do all this stuff. It's a pretty good price point. Obviously, if we were to do it and share the cost across, we wouldn't just do the same for every jurisdiction. In 21 Elements for years, they've been doing a tiered system where the largest cities pay more and the smaller cities pay less, but everybody pitches in. As we look at the REAP 2.0 funding, nothing is official yet because there's an ongoing discussion between ABAG and the state, but that's more about the transportation side of things. They're expecting that on the collaboratives, the state's on board with it. So we expect that the funding will be renewed starting in 2024. The REAP 2.0 funds have 3 goals. One is the fair housing, firmly furthering fair housing, AFFH. Another is just advancing more housing choice through infill and affordable housing. And the third is specifically focused on reducing vehicle miles traveled. So transportation efficient housing, transit oriented development. So we've been having conversations already amongst the planning staff in the collaborative about, okay, what does that look like? How does that, what things are you working on already that are aligned with these goals? And where could we do things as a collaborative that would be of benefit across the different jurisdictions? So we're still in process talking about sort of specific things, but it'd be examples like what we're doing right now in terms of like the Grand Nexus study and the ADU program, but more focused on these goals. The one thing that we are expecting with REAP 2.0 is that there'll be a local match to those state funds. So their ABAG's basically saying, hey, like we primed the pump for all these collaboratives. Hopefully it showed sort of value to folks. And now we're going to start like expecting people to put some skin in the game. We've heard like 15 to 25%, and it might not even be in the first year, but in the second year. Again, 15-20% of 615,000 is a fair amount of money. When you break it down by 16 jurisdictions, we're probably looking at less than $5,000 per jurisdiction to do that local match. So we'll come back and talk to you about specifics and some ideas about how that might be tiered or some options once we know the details. We hope when we scheduled this that we'd know the details, but we don't yet. So we'll come back when we do. But just wanted to daylight that and answer any questions you might have. But if there's anything you want to add or.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one more slide. I just forgot.
Okay.
Sorry. Next month, we're going to do our first in a while in-person meeting with the collaborative staff. We're going to start the day earlier than 2:30 with our regular meeting and doing some training, interactive training with the planning and housing staff. And then at 2:30, we're going to be doing a site visit, a tour and presentation in Quetzal Gardens, which is in San Jose. It's an affordable housing development that was done in collaboration with local community partners. I think it's a great story about partnership to create affordable housing, community building, a lot of pride in that. And sort of just hear the story about how that happened from the planning staff perspective at the city and then from the community side. So do that. And then we're going to round that up and we are figuring out the venue. But we'd love to invite you to join both for the tour and then for sort of a social happy hour after the fact. We're going to, once we have the location nailed down, send out a calendar invite to share with all of your council members and invite them to join just to, we'll talk a little bit about what the collaborative does, but just a chance to sort of also just have some social time and talk about housing, how this is a shared challenge that we're facing and some of the great success stories we're seeing, and end up the year with on a positive note. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
I just have a quick comment on this. I think it's a very good idea. As council members, we are making decisions about housing elements and the different pieces that come together. And we all talk about planning collaborative. I have been on the board there the last couple of years, so I'm somewhat privy to it, but the other council members are not. And I think this would be very helpful for all of us.
The plan is to invite all council members.
I understand.
Yeah.
And that's why I say this is a great idea for everyone to meet and understand the role that the planning collaborative is doing. But those are some of the decisions when we look at our budget as to what's the value add, and for each council member to have a sense directly interacting with you, I think will be cool. So.
Thank you.
May I add that it's also a good way for council members to see how their city staff have been interacting with our planning collaborative, how that works together. So
That's exactly what I'm
Anything else? If not, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Nope. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Yeah, no, thank
Good
you.
to see
Thank
you.
for all the work that you guys do.
I hope to see you
Hope to
next.
See you in November.
Thank you. We will go to our next guest speaker. Actually, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Tina, but would you like to introduce the speakers since you were the one that was able to?
I'm happy
them?
to. Thank you.
And then just so little context, one of our priorities for the Cities Association this year was mental health. And so Tina's arranged for some of our next guest speakers. So introduce them, that'd be great. Thank you.
So as President Mark said, one of the goals this year for the Cities Association was to talk about mental health. And that was not something I had signed up for, but this is that month where both September and October, different people from different nonprofits around the Bay Area have been reaching out to council members across all the cities. And I have the honor of having in Saratoga the current NAMI board president of the school. And in fact, I met him last weekend in person for the first time. However, I met him virtually 2 years ago when Udit Kapoor and Rick Ozakian were both at reached out to us in when they were working on the suicide prevention policy for each city. That was one of the goals that Rick was each city in the county. That's how I met them. And in the city of Saratoga, we don't have a budget much. We tally with the work with the county in terms of health. However, bringing that awareness to each council, I thought was all they had. And I'll take the time right now to also mention the other guest speaker tonight is going to be Ava Singh, who's a member of the board of directors from Maitri. And coincidentally, their team had been wanting to, they reached out to me 2 months ago. They wanted to meet me in person, somebody from their group. It's a domestic violence support group, started as about 30 years ago for South Asian women. Now they have expanded beyond that. And they were looking for ways that I could help them in my city. Going back to, again, small city, budget challenges. And I was thinking, I am not here to do lip service, but to find ways to help your nonprofit. And the best way I could think of was to connect them with council members in different cities. And having the role of being on the executive board of Cities Association, suddenly dawned on me, this is the right place to have speakers from both NAMI and Maitri here so they can meet each one from each of the cities. So I'm glad that Margaret was Think of you meeting with support, and Nisa who's sitting somewhere here. They supported the idea that we get speakers from these.
And I believe, was it last week was Mental Illness Awareness Week? Is that-
Last month.
Last month. And then October is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So very appropriate. Thank you so much for being here and welcome.
So, Vivek Kapoor, should I introduce myself in terms of my background? If that is, I had sent a small bio, short bio.
Would you like me to read
Yeah,
it?
go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. So after graduating from the University of Washington, go Huskies, my daughter's there right now. With a graduate degree in electrical engineering, Uday spent almost 50 years in Silicon Valley with a career in the computer industry, working closely with the pioneers. He retired from Oracle in 2018 and has served the community for mental health causes over the last decade. With an adult son with co-occurring issues of developmental disability and mental illness, he has championed the cause of collaborative care for co-occurring diagnoses. He serves on several boards and is currently the president of NAMI Santa Clara County Board of Directors. And I also want to introduce a good friend and former Palo
Interesting being
Alto.
back here.
Yes, welcome back.
I was here 20 years ago.
So Vic Ojakian is a former Palo Alto City Council member and mayor in 2002. And he has been a strong advocate for mental health and suicide prevention, working on suicide prevention efforts nationally in the state of California, in the Bay Area, and in the city of Palo Alto. Vic performs trainings and has made extensive presentations, including to a federal congressional hearing on mental health and the California State Senate Select Committee on Mental Health. He and his wife, Mary, have helped produce the Santa Clara County Suicide Prevention Strategic Plan and worked to implement this plan. Vic has advocated and helped gain passage of California legislation promoting mental health care and suicide prevention. And he currently co-chairs the Santa Clara County Suicide Prevention Committee and is past president of NAMI. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Lengthy.
No, I'm glad that Vic's here, so we can have a joint voice here. I followed him and he's a mentor of mine, so I really respect him. Another mentor of mine is Senator Jim Bell, that you may know. And Dave Mineta is another mentor. So I'm so privileged to be at NAMI, where all of the people, the predecessors, executive directors in the past, they're all around. They haven't left. So I have such a nice support system here. So how many people have heard of NAMI? Okay, that's wonderful. Good.
Doing your job.
So in the 1970s, small groups of parents used to get together because they were seeking answers. They were looking for solutions to the mental illness for their families, children. And they used to just meet, and around the nation. And so one particular group in California, in fact, very close to this area, small gathering of families, they formed an organization called Parents of Adult Schizophrenics. This is a nonprofit association that eventually changed its name to Alliance for Mentally Ill of San Mateo. This is close to here in San Mateo, where this group was formed, and this name kind of stuck. Okay? But this spurred a national movement that advocated for more research, greater support, and broader public awareness. In 1979, 284 individuals met in Wisconsin. And I think there were 2 ladies. And they came from 59 different family support groups in 29 states and Canada. And a resolution was adopted to incorporate National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, NAMI. This is the history. Currently, NAMI, it's a national organization, is headquartered in Arlington, Virginia. And it has around 1,000 state and local affiliates. So it's a very large organization. I happen to just join privilege to join the President's Council. And there's a lot of energy there because the President's Council helps the board, the National NAMI Board of the policies. So there's a lot of chatter going on right now. One example is parity, I think what you talked about, which is a thing that Jim Bell pushed in the state legislature. And currently there is we could talk about the Joe Simitian's submission.
Well, I think we'll give everybody the
Copy.
the document, the memo that he put in that Julie has, so everybody will get that later.
Yes.
But he had something on the agenda October 3rd that the board, his colleagues are going to move forward. But I'm happy you mentioned Jim. Jim Bell is probably the expert in the state of California on mental health parity. In 2018, he and I gave a talk for an event that Palo Alto University had. And that same morning, the federal government had just released, after years of delay, released the guidelines. But Jim, if you want to know about parity, ask Jim to come and speak. There's nobody who's wiser on that topic.
And he gets inflamed when he hears about, problems and people don't get insurance, So anyway, as far as NAMI Santa Clara County, this was formed around 1975. It has been a grassroots self-help support and advocacy nonprofit organization for individuals and their families who are living with serious mental health conditions. NAMI Santa Clara County offers practical experience, support, education, comfort, and understanding to anyone concerned about mental illness. We work with public organizations, private businesses, educational institutions, and the media to increase organizational and personal knowledge of effective ways to support and manage mental illness, as well as advocating for increased research and improved access to mental health services. So we have lots of programs, and actually you sent a list to to Shelley. You have this, and this list actually lists all of the programs that we have. So I don't know if we want to go through that, you can read this later. This is education and training, support groups. There's a warn line, phone number. It's sort of like what happens in the county. They have a crisis line. There are several programs, including just mentioned, the warn line, FaithNet, peer-to-peer program, presentations, voice, and ending the silence. We have a website, a newsletter, monthly journal meet, talks, and resource guide. The general meetings, we invite people of stature. I mean, people that really are authoritative. Like the last month's speaker was Dr. Duckworth, who is the Chief Medical Officer for NAMI. And what an amazing speaker. Yeah. And he's written a book, You Are Not Alone. He's writing another book that he's going to be publishing very soon. Some of our programs are in Spanish, and we have an eclectic board of directors. It's a very, very solid board of directors. I'm really proud of them. Funding, we have individual and institutional donors and government funds, etc. We have a strong relationship with the county. It is, maybe you could also talk a little bit about that.
We'll put Steve on the spot.
So we're very proud of that. And, I'm coming from the technical world. I was very blunt, okay, and I don't have any political motive. So I'm very blunt with people like, there's a guy called Key Lee, who currently heads, he was the director of supportive housing. Now he's the deputy county executive. Even the county executive, or the board of supervisors, when I talk to them private, I'm very blunt. I tell them, you have to go and look at the condition of people living in the homes, how bad it is. And once you see it, you become an advocate because it's such a situation. And my situation is that I have a son, he's 46 years old, just 3 days ago, he became 46. He has both developmental disabilities and also schizophrenia. So that's the most challenging situation. So I know, I learned both the systems, both of the DDS system and the DHCS system, and they don't talk to each other. So I had a privilege and honor to get to know the governor and Secretary Galley, the Health and Human Services Secretary Galley. And I mentioned it to them, that there is this gap in communication or collaborative care, because there are so many people that have intellectual disabilities and mental illness, and they are the most vulnerable because they are socially backward. They just don't know how to express themselves. So once they can be stabilized, in terms of their mental illness, they still need to be taken care of. So they both acknowledge that there is this vacuum and this gap. So actually, with another person from the state, I had organized this symposium called Bridging the Gap, which was held about more than a year ago, and it got wide circulation from the whole Bay Area. We had tremendous support. And the Deputy Secretary, Stephanie Welsh, who you know very well, she participated, and she also realized that we need to seek somebody from she heads the mental health board, the behavioral health board. She didn't know anybody from the intellectual disability. So she is helping to form forums where we can talk about this. So those are some things. I think one of the things that you've talked about is housing. And the housing for the mentally ill, this is an area which is, again, the difference between the people that are in the developmental disability world that are serviced by the regional centers versus people in mental health from the county. It's so vast, the reimbursements are so different, and the challenges are so numerous. I happened to fight the battle with the regional center because they did not accept my son, because at that time he was diagnosed as pervasive developmental disabled, which was not part of the ASD or the autistic spectrum disorder. But DSM-5 changed that. And so you wouldn't believe that after 35 years, I reapplied to the regional center, and they finally accepted it because his psychologist 30 years ago remembered him and wrote a 13-page report on him. That was finally accepted. And this last week, he moved into a housing, a group home, which is more appropriate for him. He was well taken care of in Momentum under Dave Manetta's organization, but this was a learning experience for me. And so the people that are trying to do the Bridging the Gap, they're asking me to make that as a showcase. And so anyway, so that's on housing. I think the other thing we talked about is gun violence. And what I like to tell you is that the state of California had the strongest gun laws, right? And I printed something which shows that there are 23 bills were passed that support gun law. This gun law, yes.
It's the first set of bills Newsom signed
Yes.
in this session.
Right. But the position that NAMI has, I think one of the questions is, what is NAMI's position? We believe that people with mental illness are victims rather than perpetrators of gun violence. This has been completely misunderstood. People that are untreated are 16 times more likely to be shot by a police officer. This is, so NAMI's position is that the public policy should be guided by credible evidence-based research NAMI supports funding for research to understand the causes and effects of gun violence in the US, including self-directed violence, and opposes restriction on gun violence research. So that's something that is the NAMI's official position. So I think that's, anything else you'd like to add?
How much time do we have, Mark?
Um,
I want to be respectful, having been at the other end.
and there's some questions here, so if you could take a couple more minutes.
Okay. Well, I want to say a few things then real quickly. But first, let me preface my remarks because I don't get much of an opportunity to do this these days. Since I've lived in Palo Alto 47 years, and as everybody now knows, I served 6 years on the planning commission and 8 years on the city council. So I have some vested interest in the city. And since I have a captive audience for a couple of minutes, I want to say what a great job our mayor is doing this year. She's been an excellent mayor,
Thank you.
and she's married to a great guy. I served on this committee when I was both the vice mayor, because the mayor didn't have an interest, and as the mayor. But the last time I was here was in 2010, September of 2010. If you remember, probably, because Margaret was here. And I was here because we had just passed the county suicide prevention plan, being really the first county in the state to do that. And this committee, the members of that committee, through their own volition, made a motion to approve the plan, support the plan. They didn't have to do that. They did that because they wanted to. So what's the point? The point is this, because I'll give you a few facts here in just a few minutes, because I respectful of your time. You can do something. It's nice to get information, but you can actually do something. Now, a lot of times when I'm in front of groups like this, I'll start off by saying, probability tells me a number of people in this room have had their lives impacted by a mental health condition and or suicide. And since a few of you I know and have talked to you, I mean, I know that's the case, but there are several people in this room. And the point would be this: a lot of us have had our lives affected by this. But if we want to turn the corner, we have to talk about it. We have to do something. Because to me, from the realm I operate from, I'm not a clinician. As I always say, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor. You can go on with the iteration of all the other things. What I do is work on awareness. And I think at some stage, we're going to cross over into a level of awareness where people treat mental health and suicide prevention at the same level we treat other serious public health matters. But that takes, as I always say, people say, well, Vic will do it. No, Vic isn't going to do it. That takes a large group of people, social change, to turn things in a different direction. I mean, take the issue of mental health parity that Jim has worked so hard on for so many years. I mean, the issue is mental health is one of the few mental health or medical health conditions that we don't treat to its conclusion, right? Most things you get a series of treatment and it doesn't stop till you're healthy, but in mental health, it's a little different. So what I did, again, being respectful for your time and having been asked to do this at the last minute or so, I put a cheat sheet together. My favorite thing, do something on one page so I don't overwhelm you. In the first section, Uday's gone through about NAMI Santa Clara County. Second section is some of the things that the county does in terms of there's resources out there. Some of your cities are taking advantage of it. I know Palo Alto is, because I wrote up some things for people in the police department so they knew what was out there. But that's what you'll get on this cheat sheet, and you can look it over and I give you the links and you can go into it and see what interests you, what you think is valuable to you. if there's anything on there that confuses you, you want no more information, ask Steve Premich. It's his job, right? The last section, the third section I put on here is dealing with gun safety measures. So understand there is a program in Santa Clara County around gun safety. And it's basically run by the group I'm involved with, which is the suicide prevention program. And there's a series of different things that we do. And I give you a link to a web page on here and some other things that we have. And I gave the link, by the way, in here to all the bills that Newsom signed. And then, and you should know, because of an email I got today, interestingly enough, Biden started a federal programs called the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. So people should go in there and, it's fresh and new, so I don't know how extensive the information is yet, but there are things available to you. And the two events I put on here at the end, there's tons of things going on out there, but since Stanford has their annual Mood Disorder Day, it's late this year and it's this Saturday. So anybody who's interested, it's free. This year, they went back to online. They did it in person for a couple of years after the pandemic, but they're back online, and I give a link in here and you can go in and register. And the other thing that's happening in November, because I thought some of you might find this interesting and a lot of people don't talk about this, November is Children's Grief Awareness Month. So it's another thing to be, and I give you a link to something around that. So I leave you with this resource sheet. Shaylee has it. You asked me a question late in the day, and yes, anybody can have it. I don't do things in a proprietary way. The state has a program called Each Mind Matters. I don't know if anybody's aware of it. It started several years ago. It's a state level program. It's actually a joint powers association involving the county behavioral health directors. And I brought you their mental health support guide, because fortunately I had enough of them handy. I didn't have enough of these when I went to look today. But if anybody wants a pen, that's part of our, it's the crisis line with its numbers and stuff. And if somebody wanted a pen and didn't get one, let her know. She'll let me know, and I'll have to go back to the department and say, give me a few more pens. And then also, if people aren't familiar, I imagine some of you are, the green ribbon designates mental health. And again, because of the late notice when I got told about coming tonight, I just grabbed what I had left, which I don't think is enough. But again, if they get all taken and somebody wants one, let me know and I will go back to people and get them. So that's a quick overview of things. Yep. Yep.
So can I just have one more minute? Sorry to take up so much time. So you asked about legislation. I think this governor is doing the most that I have seen anybody do about mental health. And, of course, he's reforming MHSA, Mental Health Services Act, the millionaire's tax. And it's controversial. A lot of people are against it. But the impact of that and the impact of care code, I think will be coming. It's coming no matter if you can't prevent it. So the best thing is to prepare for it, do the best you can. That's my advice.
I think we have some questions, so if you don't mind, Sergio.
Yeah, I just had some very basic questions. Funny enough, I got a text about a week ago and I actually hadn't responded yet. I was thinking about her as I was looking at this. So it's a resident of mine that's very involved in the NAMI walk, I guess, to raise money. And so it gets, so I'm sure some of us get solicited for some of that. Yeah, so I'm going to respond to her because I've forgotten. So we have folks throughout the area that are very supportive of the organization. So I heard you mention a regional center.
Yes.
And I was going to ask you, can you help me understand that? Yes. And it's tied to a question, but I want to see if maybe you answer it just in responding with it.
The regional centers were formed to help the people with developmental disability, autism and intellectual disability. They're different things. And that's done by DDS, Department of Developmental Services at the state level, right? So children that are diagnosed with autism or intellectual disability, they get an IEP, they have a plan
Right.
formed, and then they're helped through the schools, okay? So the difference between mental illness and that world is that this is diagnosed early. Mental illness, schizophrenia, for example, happens later in age, 18, 19 years old, and it's a shock to families. Whereas the intellectual disability, that is, it's a disability. So the regional centers, there's the Santa Clara County has San Andreas Regional Center,
Oh.
SAR.
And that's what I was going to ask about. So I'll just ask you my question because I think, so the San Andreas Regional Center is located in San Jose, in the area I used to represent. Very familiar with them. We're hosting an event with them this Saturday, actually. I'll tell you a little bit about it because it's fascinating. But I always thought that they focused on physical disabilities, but no, it's because I'm very interested and curious about the intersection of mental health disabilities and physical disabilities. Sometimes they intertwine and they're different. And so that's why I was asking the question, because I didn't know if they.
Yes, so this is what exactly I was talking about, that they do interact in real life, but they're not, the services are not there. They need to be special housing for those folks, and they're not there. So working with Stephanie Welsh, that's the model we're trying to create.
I understand. And I would just leave you with this Saturday, we're my office, along with San Andreas Regional Center, actually renting out some movie theaters in San Jose to do two different screenings for children and kids that often don't go out to these spaces because of some of their behavior, right? Because of their disabilities. And so we're creating a safe space so they can actually go watch a movie like the rest of us. And so it's very exciting.
The housing for those children is at home, right? Children are taken care of by parents and families until they become adults. Then it becomes a real problem for them.
Right.
And I see, and by the way, I got an ADU built, so I'm, and the people that are coming to look at, for some reason, the guy who built it, the company, they're using my ADU as a model home. And the people that are coming have people with autism, children with autism, and they think that they can build an ADU on the property and have them be taken care of. So it's a
very good.
Anyway.
And I'll just, last thing, I typically don't talk too much, but let me, the last thing I would just say is I very
say is always the biggest one.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just wanted to say how evident it was to me as you were both talking, how personal this topic is. And I just want to express how I think all of us have gone through moments, especially the last few years I have, in which I really realized how important mental health is. And so I wanted to I appreciate you being vulnerable to a certain extent in this space. And because it's very apparent to me, at least, that it's very personal. So thank you.
37% of college students were at risk for suicide.
Yeah. But thank you.
Let me say, I wasn't going to comment much more, but so a number of people in this room know my personal story, and that is I lost a son to suicide. And see, it still affects me. I'll tell you two things that came out of that was shocking to me. One was all the city council members in the Bay Area that called me after he died with their personal stories. And the second thing was all the people I knew in Palo Alto, some for 20, 30, and 40 years, who never talked about their, in fact, that's why I mentioned what I did at the beginning. A lot of people, how can I say this? I think one day we're going to cross over and people will feel they have the opportunity to talk about their personal experience. And when that happens, I think we'll be all together trying to really change what's happening. I mean, having done this work for a while now, I equate it to when medicine was using leeches and things of that nature. We haven't reached the point that we should have. We're addressing this issue in a far more serious way.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
I went to Istanbul and they still have these jars with They have leeches. They're selling leeches.
Yes, Stan.
I just wanted to thank you guys for being here today. There are people here that are listening. My name is Stan Monk. I'm from Los Altos Hills. And I got to tell you that you hit it right on the nail. There are so many people out there. I would have to say in my town that have issues. And these issues, I think that they haven't been resolved. They're ongoing. We spent a lot of money in donations through a number of organizations just to help our residents. And it's not just in other neighborhoods, it's in every neighborhood. So again, thank you very much for being here. I have listened.
We have a statement in NAMI. I try and promote this. I said, we do a number of classes and trainings. They're very good. And somebody says, oh, our classes are free. And I always say they're not free. We spend a lot of money putting those classes on. We just don't charge for them. And the reason is we want everybody to feel that they can take them regardless of their personal situation.
Very, very popular. Family to Family, for example, is sold out for weeks.
So first, I want to say thank you so much. You surprised me, Vic, but thank you. And thank you, Ade. Thank you, Ade, and both of you for being here today. You talked about housing and gun violence, but I was also looking at AI, the internet. With AI coming forward really fast, I think to jump ahead of it and to look into ensuring that it doesn't harm children any more than it does now. I don't know how AI is affected and if NAMI is taking a look at that. I know at Stanford there is a lady, she has something called Delaney at Screen Agers, which actually talks about children, youth, who are on their phones all the time or on their devices all the time. And sometimes there's bullying going on, there's shaming going on. And with the ability of taking pictures and so forth, that's another concern. Can you say if NAMI is looking at this in a scientific way, and how are they taking that into consideration?
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a number of documents out there that try and focus in on the effects of social media, but one thing that was going around like wildfire at the beginning of this year is the U.S. Surgeon General put out a document. Have you seen it?
I have.
Yeah. I think that has become sort of a cornerstone for people trying to look and address this particular issue. For those of you who don't know, by the way, through the county suicide prevention program, they have a contract with a group that's basically centered out of Stanford called the Herd Alliance. It was formed when our teenagers in Palo Alto died, and a number of people from across a spectrum of professions came together and said, we're going to do things and we're going to do them for free so that people respond. And they have a toolkit out there. It's on their website, the Herd Alliance. It's called the K through 12, something like suicide prevention, mental wellness toolkit, something of that nature. Don't anybody go out here and say that I said it wrong, because my wife was significant in writing that toolkit. But using that toolkit and some other tools, the county suicide prevention program has MOUs with 20 of the last count, haven't looked at it recently, 20 of the 32 school districts to perform on-campus mental health and suicide prevention work. So, and subcomponent of it looks at the impacts of social media.
Thank you.
You're familiar with the Surgeon General's document, maybe some of the rest of you aren't. It's gotten pushed to the forefront. It is the document that sort of has said to people, oh, we need to do something about this.
We're trying to bring Surgeon General here for public health. I personally know him, and Dave Mineta worked with him in the administration, and I happen to know his dad, Surgeon General's dad. We are communicating right now all the time about different things. So
Everybody's dead.
let's hope that that happens, and we hope that other dignitaries will come. But he also wrote a book on loneliness, which is like really authoritative. This is from his personal experience.
Steve Preminger, did you
I want to follow up on Vic's subtle nudge to me. I
I'm
know
never
all
subtle
of
with you,
you
so.
from coming to all your meetings. I'm Steve Preminger. I'm the Director of Strategic and Intergovernmental Affairs for the county. I've been working with Vic since before I came to the county. I came to appreciate this topic after getting to know Vic and realizing what a deep and beautiful person he is and how he's devoted his life to this topic. I just want to let you know if there are any issues that the services the county provides that you'd like to know about in your city, or I've had people come to presentations, as you know, but if you'd like some personal referrals from different departments, please let me know.
Thank you. I'm gonna give you the last word.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say thanks again to Uday and to it's your passion that brought this subject and the gravity of it to my attention. And I really appreciate you making the time at such short notice to come and bring the information to all of us. So we are all aware, and being in the public policy space, whenever we feel a need, we can connect people in the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Vic.
Nice seeing you, Margaret.
Thank you for coming to NAMI walks.
Oh, yes, yes.
We-
It was a great event.
Vic is also demonstrating how you can continue. I mean, he was here 20 years ago and where we are sitting.
You can always come back.
Public service continues.
And then
Jack.
I'm glad I put
oh, Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie.
Oh, I probably have the bio in here.
Yeah. I would like to now introduce Abba Singzi. And Abba's vision is a world where every human being lives a life of dignity. She's a leadership coach and a business consultant, bringing her experience from founding 2 businesses and selling one of them to monster.com. She is currently an adjunct professor at Santa Clara University and a member of Sand Hill Angels. Abba designs and delivers leadership workshops, provides one-on-one group coaching for individuals and teams, and she has worked with leaders from 40+ countries. She has actively worked with nonprofit organizations throughout her career. She is co-founder of Global Women Leadership Network, board member at Maitri, which she'll be talking about this evening. And she serves on the boards of Aarti for Girls, an India-based women's empowerment organization that focuses on the issue of female gendercide, and Bay Area Video Coalition, a San Francisco-based organization that inspires social change by empowering media makers to develop and share diverse stories through art, education, and technology. She completed her MBA at Sacred Heart University and certifications in life and organizational coaching from JFK University. And with that, welcome and
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, for inviting us here. Before I talk about my 3, I want to take a moment to talk about the epidemic that's pervasive in our homes, cities, state, country, and the world, domestic violence. So a little bit I want to talk about that. So domestic violence is an ill that exists in all communities, irrespective of culture, religion, sexual orientation, financial status, and immigration realities. Research shows nearly 20 people per minute are abused by an intimate partner in the United States. Domestic violence programs receive more than 20,000 calls a day on average. The presence of guns increase the risk of homicide by 500% in a situation involving domestic violence. Studies also suggest that there is a relationship between intimate partner violence and depression, suicidal behavior. What we already heard, some of them, there is a lot of correlations there between them. Physical, mental, sexual, reproductive health also is affected by domestic violence. They've been linked to intimate partner violence. Victims of domestic violence are also at higher risk for developing addiction to alcohol, tobacco, drugs. I want you all to take pause and think about what was said. There was a lot of heavy stuff in there. Many of us might understand intimate partner violence or domestic violence as a singular incident, but it is time for us to acknowledge the multifold consequences and challenges a victim or survivor faces. And I'm going to, with that, shift on to a little bit about My Three. So My Three started about a little over 3 decades ago, 1991, in response to filling a gap that was there and serving the South Asian communities because of our cultural and linguistic expertise that we have. Our goal has been not to duplicate the services that have been there, and we've been mostly listening to the community and what is required, and have been responding to that is what we've been doing. And over time, yes, we don't just serve South Asians, we are starting to now include beyond that because of the work that we are doing. So, and we work with our clients in a very holistic manner. It's from the time they come in, working with them on what they need legally, from family law, immigration law, everything, to their housing needs, economic empowerment, their mental health issues that they need help with. And the economic empowerment includes all aspects, from whether it be financial education that they need. A lot of our clients that we work with have never opened a bank account on their own. They don't know how, even they've never written a check or don't know what a credit card is, how to create their expense and income statement. So we work on financial education with them, any other education trainings that is required. Then resume writing, confidence building, skills required for job search, interviews, all of those, we work with them. Every aspect that they need to become a whole person so that they are independent on their own, they're empowered and independent on their own. Our goal is so that they don't come back and talk to us. They don't go back into those similar situations again, because statistics show that average person walks out of a domestic violence situation 6 to 7 times before they really walk out. And unless all of these things are put in place, and majority of them do it because all of these pieces are not in place for them. Housing becomes a big part of it, low income housing here, especially in the Bay Area. When you don't have a roof over your head, it is very hard to continue. Same as the economic empowerment program. It's like, if you can't find a job, if you're not independent economically, you cannot, then it's easier to just go back to the situations you were in multiple times. We've worked with clients who have, we've worked with, they're almost out of the whole situation and they go right back into it. And then a few months later, we get the call from the same client again, either in that same relationship or the next relationship that they find again. So we've even done programs like New Beginnings. Once they have finished, they are really empowered and everything, and they do want to find a relationship. Having a program so that they think through all of that, build their own personal self first before going and finding that relationship, and looking deep inside and seeing what does a healthy relationship look like, because somewhere the history is not there. So, and since the effect of DV lasts through multi-generations, we engage the entire community. We do include men and youth for especially active prevention programs, because at some point, when we completed our 25 years, we looked at what do we want in the next 25 years? Yes, we continue to serve survivors who are there, the victims who are there. But at some point, we want the cycle to stop. And so hence, we also built that next pillar of prevention work. And that we do a lot of it with youth. That's there and engaging men on our website, on our Facebook. Every few weeks, there is the men in the community are coming up from different walks of life and writing why they stand with us. So that we are working with the entire community and not just saying this is a women's issue. Or we do work with our clientele who are men and women. It just so happens that the majority of the calls we get are women calls. But we do, if there are men who reach out to us, we work with them. And we want to work especially on the prevention and everything with men. Our board also has a couple of men on it. So we've started more and more working with all of that. The COVID made us shift towards this. There are always these silver linings that happen with it. Hard thing with COVID was, it was like a pandemic within a pandemic happened, domestic violence. It almost increased threefold across all cultures. And also we had just started a prevention program at that time. But all those panels that we were doing with students, they all came to a stop. So we switched into doing more and more podcasts. So now we have a whole podcast series, which we continue to do. And it's amazing to see the youth come forward and talk and share. They are so much more open to sharing. We heard earlier that we need to be able to talk about these issues. Especially in the South Asian community where we started working, was nobody wanted to talk about domestic violence. We even had some people tell us, why do you want to use the word domestic violence? Can't you use another word? We were like, it's domestic violence. We have to say it. People would come and say, oh, but it doesn't happen in the educated or the economically higher communities. And we're like, which world are you living in? A lot of clients I have personally worked with are somewhere related to my friends, their family or their colleagues or somebody there. It's like they are in the senior positions, very educated. So that myth that's there that it happens only in the uneducated or the lower class. Yes, we do work with a lot of that disadvantaged piece. We do have our own transitional house, 9-bedroom transitional house that we have. And because especially with the immigrant community, it becomes as to move from shelter to shelter. How do you put your life back together? Every 30 days, if you have to keep moving. So we have a transition house where you can go stay for 9 months. Finish with your all the legal stuff that's going on. Some of them need to learn English or put their other things together. And the transition house does have a gap from all communities. It is because of fun. I think that's where we also started shifting first time towards the non-South Asians. We got the county funding, so which was a great funding. We are funded by cities and counties. We do get partial fundings from them. 40% of our funding comes from the community, but the rest of it either comes from the government or from the private foundations. That's where we get our fundings from. And what is this? We are members of Santa Clara DV Consortium. We have absolutely work in collaboration with all of them. And because of our cultural and linguistic expertise, we have been invited to train other DV organizations in Santa Clara County. And also as part of the outreach, we have done trainings for hospitals, for the doctors and nurses, and also for the law enforcement professionals. We go early morning 4:35 at the police stations and do trainings there, cultural trainings, sensitivity trainings there. We have worked with the DA's office, the judges, and done trainings. We've been invited to do trainings for all of them. And would be remiss if I didn't have a list of what I would like you to consider. We request you to consider the following: enact and support policies that address an intersectional approach to addressing domestic violence, mental health, and homelessness. They are all so interconnected. Unless we address all of those together, something or the other is going to fall through the cracks. So that's what we really request you. Offer more free mental health care for individuals in need. We have heard a lot already on it. Cities need more options for low-income housing. Again, something we've heard today here. Create way around credit histories for the low-income housing, since many of the new immigrants do not have credit records. Most of the programs that exist need a credit history, but new immigrants don't have that. So if we can figure out a way around that, so consider that. Subsidies from cities for rental assistance would be helpful. Offer training on cultural responsiveness to various local government employees and agencies, and we are happy to partner with you on any of those things as you work on that. Involve the non-governmental organizations as thought partners while planning city reforms like mental health programs, interim emergency housing, community education, services for survivors of domestic violence, all of them working with the non-governmental organizations. Uplift the voices of the minority groups whenever possible, as they lack representations in committees and other policy-making spaces. And earlier I was talking to you and we were talking about equity, diversity, so including more and more of that. If you're in a position to make decisions about any support, including funding, consider us favorably. And invite us to talk in the city events. We're talking about outreach, getting the voice out there. So invite us in any of the city events if you see any possibility of educating or just informational in there. Keep our flyers in your office, you can. Some of those are very easy ones to do, the last few, and the rest of them we are very much willing to work with you. And any community members, I don't think we have any of the community members there. Oh, we do have. I urge you to recognize domestic violence as a pressing issue, exemplify healthy relationships for the children at home, elect leaders, and promote policies that contribute towards building a just and equitable future for all of us. And thank you for the opportunity. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you. Any questions?
Just ask you a simple question. So what's the cause of domestic violence? Main cause of domestic violence?
It's a power and control cycle is what causes it. It sounds like a very simple answer, but that's the complicated piece sitting under it is power and control.
Just the psyche of somebody wants to have power and control? Or is there a mental health issue with them? Or is there
There's a lot of statistics and studies done on kids who grew up with violence. They grow up. That's why it becomes a cycle there also. What they see in their childhood, whether they agree with or not, it becomes them. And that's where it's also breaking that cycle becomes important to us. And rest of it, yes, it comes back to that control part of it, the human behavior that's there. Doesn't mean it cannot be broken, that cannot be addressed in there. The anger issues that are there, absolutely. So even if somebody has gone through in their childhood, I've always found this, okay, you know what? I have compassion for the child, and now you're an adult, and there is help available for those adults. And absolutely, we have seen examples of people who do shift.
So how, I have two questions. How do the victims find you?
So we do a lot of outreach work. We show up at different fairs that are there, different events. Social media now has been very helpful with that. So, and that's been increasing. Our number of calls are increasing, and people ask us, does that mean domestic violence is increasing? We don't know. That's hard to say, but certainly our outreach has increased. And also how people are receiving us, we see a difference. 20 years ago, we would go to any fair, people would walk up to our table and scream at us saying that you're breaking up families. You need to stop doing this. They would scream at us that this is you guys just a group of all lesbians trying to do that. We have heard all of that. They would really threaten us. Fast forward now, we have community members who will come and say, thank you for what you're doing. And so we've made a difference with that.
So my second question is, this is what I heard, that it's easier to help the victims, but it's very hard to to convert the victimizers. So is that how you mostly support the victims instead of trying to,
So we do not work with perpetrators.
Okay.
It's balancing that is a very hard thing now. The court sometimes requires it when there is a custody or something, then there's a 52-week anger management courses that are there, all of that. We do have a lot of people coming and saying that you need to work with him. As soon as we work with two people, it's very hard to keep the trust piece. Trust is such an important piece in this, because the trust from the person who they trusted most has been broken. The trust inside the house, home is the safest space. And that's where the trust has been broken. There's betrayal happened there. So for them to build trust with anybody is hard. So working with both.
so you work with the victims? Yes. Okay, thank you.
A quick question. I think about the spouses who come over with the H-1B visas, right? And I just wanted to, in the Bay Area, there's a lot of those. I just wanted to ask you, do you find that they're particularly isolated? Not the H-1B visa holder, but the spouse.
The spouses absolutely are very isolated because they don't have friends, family. Their community is the community of their spouse. So when anything happens and they talk, a lot of the perpetrators, also the outside persona that they maintain is like, it's like that who they are inside the house and who they're outside is sometimes very different. It's like, oh, he is such an amazing person, such a polite person. So even if they talk to anyone, everyone tries to talk them out of it. And when they do get out of the house, then the isolation becomes even more. With South Asian families, added cultural aspect also is the pressure from home on the parents and everyone, because there is whole taboo around divorces and all of those things that you're going to bring the name of the family down. You need to learn to adjust. You need to go back. So understanding all of the family pressures also that come with it. So isolation is there, plus the immigration issue is there, is they're on a dependent visa of their partners. And the big threat becomes is, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to get you deported back. And especially if they have children who are born in the US, children are US citizens, which means you cannot take your children. And for any parent, that is the biggest threat, that it's like, I'm going to take your kids away from you because you're going to get deported, but you can't take the children because that becomes an abduction. Right. Even otherwise, if mom is leaving with the kids to run away, we do guide them as, if you're going to leave home with the child, go first file a good cause report with the cops. Otherwise, it becomes an abduction. Even within the same county, same city, if you leave and you take your children with you, it's an abduction by the other parent, unless you go to the police station and file. So we can work with them, we can guide them through it, that don't do something which is going to get you even in more trouble than you are. So that, and we had asked earlier, you had asked questions about technology a little bit. Technology is great, helping in a lot of ways. At the same time, it also allows the perpetrators to control every move, to know where exactly you are. So we have now started creating programs where we tell them that, okay, you need to change every single password that you have. Think through every password, because otherwise they can track you completely. So you have to think of all of these aspects, every single thing that's concerned. And we start off by asking the clients, what help do you need? Because a lot of times they will start off by saying, I don't want to leave them. And that's like, it's okay. That's your choice. Because all of the other choices are taken away from them. The last thing you want to do is us telling them what to do. It's their life. Eventually, they have to make the choice as and when it is the right timing for them.
Yes, Steve, I was gonna say, open up for public
Yeah,
comment.
now I'm just Mr. Garrulous. A real important program to help make people aware about information and services in the community is 211. a program funded by United Way, and the county helps fund it. Many important TV organizations like Maytree and Nextdoor, the YWCA, Community Solutions are all listed. So if you know of anybody that is apprehensive, if it's not a 911 kind of call, if you call 211 24/7 in any language, you can get, places for people to go to learn how to deal with the crisis they're in.
And I'm going to add with that is also, since we are talking policies and laws, we had a law passed on VAWA, right, Violence Against Women Act, so that a woman who's going through domestic violence, if there is domestic violence, it's proven, then she can get her own green card. And that was rescinded and it's back. So if that ever comes back on the ballot anywhere, please make sure that you vote for that. I still don't understand why somebody would want to overturn that law, but it got passed, overturned, and again, same as with the H1 and H4 visas, the dependent visas, H4s could also work, and then it stopped, and then it stopped. So though, all of these laws keep going back and forth on it, depending on who's pushing on what. That's the. So I'm going to say, since everybody here is involved in politics, that if you see that you can promote any of those or support those are the ones that does help so I was get back on their feet, because the immigration status matters, and also the ability to work matters. If they cannot work, if they're not allowed to work, how do they get back on their feet? So any of these, if you can help move forward, we'll really appreciate with all of that.
Yes, Kathy, I'll give you the
Yeah,
last.
the city of Santa Clara honored Maytree at this past Tuesday night's council meeting with a special order of business to honor Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I'm glad that you were there with some of your colleagues, and you actually shared this information at the meeting as well, which is, I think it's a really great comprehensive list of the things that we can do, as policymakers and electeds. And I was going to ask if it's possible, if you feel comfortable sharing that maybe with Shali, so that she could share it with us, so we could take it back to our
Absolutely,
cities.
I'll have somebody from the office email it. Zaki will email it to you.
Anything you want to.
Yeah, that list of considerations,
Yes.
absolutely happy to send it. Rest of it, half the stuff I said is not written there. I put that aside. I didn't know what the format of this meeting was, so I had that, but then I put that aside.
Thank you very much. Really
Thank you
appreciate
so much.
being here.
One request I have.
I'm sorry, there was one more.
I was just going to say thanks. It's again the awareness. Same thing. The one member on the board, a man, reached out to me last year via email. Also happens to be Saratoga resident, and he wrote to me about the awareness bringing, and that I was mayor, and so I decided to give a proclamation and give him just like earlier with Vic and Uday. I felt we have long council meetings. We can spend 2 hours arguing an appeal about fence exception. We've all sat through those. Nothing wrong. I mean, I spent 10.5 years on the planning commission. Trust me, I'm not saying it lightly. But bringing these issues awareness is important. Yes. So even when I had some colleagues of mine squirming, we're spending 20 minutes on something like this, I felt it was important to do. That's what I did with their work, and similarly with domestic violence awareness last year. Again, somebody from their team reached out to me this year, and that's why it's the awareness that all these organizations are doing, bringing what they are doing to the attention of all of us, I felt. So thank you once again for
Thank you.
having them here.
Yes.
I also wanted to make a comment. I've heard about Maytree, they're doing an outstanding job. So keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And yes, we have had at least California support at the level. We got awards from the senators' offices and Ropana and all of them. They're all been supporting us. So thank you. And this being the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I have one last request. As we have been doing social media posts with all our policy work that we've been doing, would you all be okay if I get one picture from there with all of you to put it on our social media? on our Facebook page.
That sounds great. Yeah. Do you want us to?
He has my.
Oh. Do you want us to do this or do you want us
You want to
to?
do it this way, because then you can get council member leaders too.
Oh. Let me try on this side. Let's go to a wide
We
view.
want to put you
wide
on the
shot.
spot, councilwoman.
Don't have my glasses on, so. And then, how do I get council member
Well,
Lieber?
you all have to like get.
I guess that's why. Go there.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I was thinking of turn around and look at
If
her.
everybody can.
Everybody look at Christina.
Look at
Look at Christina.
Oh, okay, that way.
All right, great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
And
so
I have
much.
everyone's permission to put this on my 3's Facebook.
Yes.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
So Margaret, just in case people who don't know, by 3 actually stands for friendship.
Oh.
Ah.
All right. We will now go on to item 4, the joint powers agreement update. Ellie, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I just wanted to first start off by thanking everybody for being gracious enough to give us time on your agendas. Your city managers and your city staff have been really wonderful and very responsive to work with. So the month of October, you will be seeing a lot of us. But if there's any further information that you will need, please don't hesitate to reach out. I have been able to provide extra information as requested. I went to the city managers meeting yesterday and I thank them as well for putting us on the agenda and hope that they see me as a resource for getting more information.
Thank you, Shali and our team, Jani. I know Nisa went to a few council meetings and we were able to, we didn't even have to recruit him. He volunteered, but former Vice Mayor Chappie Jones is doing the show, road show. So you'll see one of us or many of us.
He's
at your
actually banned
council
from San Jose. So we're not gonna-
He's working on that, he told me.
I met with him just recently.
Did you have a question?
I do. And so is so we're gonna, in San Jose, for example, we're bringing, I'm the one bringing this forward to the full council. It has to go through a few committees, but is the ideal outcome from when it comes before the bodies for us to explicitly approve joining the JPA? It's not just simply for discussion, it's an action item, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So what some of our councils are doing is there's a meeting where there's a discussion first and then they direct staff to bring it back as an action item. The one thing that I will say is that I would really like us to be able to vote on this at our November 9th meeting. So if you could bring it as an action item before November 9th, that would be great. But yeah, anything you need, just let me know.
No, I have everything. I just needed to know how to word stuff. But
So I asked.
May I add something to that? I was very quickly skimming this, so I may be slightly off. Excuse me for that. Our agenda for next week showed up for Saratoga City Council meeting. And this is on the agenda for the 18th, next Wednesday. The way I saw the staff report, it was clearly worded that we give the authority to the city manager just in case there are minor changes in any language, as long as there are not substantive changes. And so if the city council in Saratoga wants to move forward with it, they're giving the authority to the city manager to move forward. And I thought that was a good idea, just in case some minor tweak happens somewhere. If that makes
That's
sense, Jenny.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought I'll throw that idea out here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to put our agenda next Tuesday, and it's going to be our first item because you're gonna be there, and I think.
Yes.
James is gonna be there. and then-
special meeting.
I think my question
It's a chat, there's a
should be
Chappie's-
5:30.
I think Chappie's gonna be there.
So Chappie, that's right. And my question is, what is Chappie?
It's,
looking for a job.
You know what, because you guys are all council members, so they can't make it on certain nights because of their council meetings. I have my own school board meeting, so I can't make it on certain nights. So Chappie's been very gracious to kind of help us like fill in the gaps.
Wonderful, yeah, because all three we're gonna, I'm very thrilled.
All of us.
And we're not paying him.
It is an action
Volunteer.
item we'd like to, it's
Oh,
not
fabulous.
just asking us to approve it, yeah. So,
We were very lucky to have him at our Tuesday night council meeting, and he did the presentation, and then when he left, he said he's gonna go back and get into the mothballs.
Mothball. No mothball, so again.
Any other questions, comments? Any public comment?
One city has approved it. Right?
Yes, Los Altos has approved it.
And here's one more question. I do like your idea because our package did say that if there are minor changes that we could authorize the city manager or the city attorney to approve it. I think that would be a good initiative.
That's actually really,
Non-substantial.
Non-substantial, maybe right now,
I read.
non-substantial.
that's great.
Non-substantive. Thank you.
Non-substantive.
Thank you.
Can someone spell it?
SUB.
Make sure I know.
TANTI.
Do we expect changes? I mean, we're.
Substantive.
Yeah, and we give the authority to
that,
the city manager,
yeah.
that city manager and city attorney review it.
Okay, yes.
To make sure
To
they're-
make sure they're,
yeah.
yeah, okay, so you mentioned. Good.
Yeah, that's a great approach. I've had some folks say they're waiting to see what other cities are gonna do. Our threshold is 8 cities, so as soon as we hit 8, it will go into effect. So then after that, it'll really be a yes, no vote for the council. So, but I think your approach is ideal in case there's little tweaks, so.
And convey the
anyway.
thanks to our city manager and city attorney. I was impressed. I just quickly saw it before coming here.
Yes.
So I see it on our consent calendar. This next Thursday is for either the mayor or I am mayor pro tem or our city manager to enter into the agreement for your edification.
Oh, great.
I think it's coming to our council on October 24th.
I think ours is the 24th as well on consent. Great, all right. Thank you.
You can do either.
Ours is the 7th.
7th.
We're getting it close.
Nothing like cutting it close. All right, we'll go to City Managers Association update. Christina, do you have an update?
Yes, thank you. Christina Gilmore, Assistant to the City Manager here on behalf of City Manager Kimber McCarthy. Just reporting out that the City Managers Group are holding their tomorrow Department Head Forum on November 2nd at the Mitchell Park Community Center in Palo Alto. They have over 50 up and coming staff from Santa Clara and San Mateo County agencies who will be participating in the event. If you're not aware of the event, it's an opportunity for rising staff in organizations to come and hear from department heads and city managers to learn about how they can advance in their organizations. And pretty much all the city managers in Santa Clara County will be participating as in speed coaching as well as panel discussion. So we know that you are all aware about how important it is retention and recruitment is, given that we're experiencing a large number of vacancies and impending retirements. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Any public members? All right, we'll go to Executive Director's update.
Just super quick, I shared this with all the city managers yesterday. I will be issuing rebate checks for the roundtable. So they know to expect that it's coming, and I'm just letting you all know, but I'm working with your city managers to get those checks out.
The airport.
It's not gonna be a big cat check.
Oh. Not like pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, I know, I haven't.
You're hungry, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Any public members? No? All right, with that, we stand adjourned at 8:54.
So before everybody leaves, it's not agenda. What is this Zoom bomber thing that you guys?
Ask Tina and Larry.
I was trying to remind you about, we didn't have, normally we have joys and challenges on the
Yes, we
agenda.
didn't have it,
We didn't
sorry.
have it This week, basically non-agenda items, but yeah, we were hit with Zoom bomb on Tuesday night, which a lot of cities have been getting. We were prepared for it, thank goodness. But, it is going from city to city, and we have several cities that have